So let's say that I'm your associate. The practice is, on average, you're the owner doctor. Your patients say yes to something 75% of the time, and you're getting 35% of patients to say yes to everything. I'm the associate, and I'm seeing only 50% saying yes to something and 17% of saying yes to everything. How are you having that conversation with me? But how are you saying that to me? Welcome back to another episode of My Dental Playbook. I'm your co-host, Gary Bird. Along with my friend, Dr. Blake Hamblin, we're going to be diving deep into his office and how he's doubled his collections in just under 12 months. We're also going to be talking about his journey to a $10 million practice and what he needs to do to get there. You're going to see behind the curtain, and Dr. Blake is amazing at sharing the hard details that you need to know so you can do the same too. If you want to grow, this is the show for you. Stay tuned. All right. So we just wrapped up our mastermind and it was really good. We got so much value. And one of the topics that came out of that, well, first of all, free little plug. If you're not part of the mastermind, there's a link down below and it's $299 and you have to be nice. You have to be a nice person and you have to want to grow. But if you fit that qualification, you can come and you can ask all us the direct questions that you want, myself or Dr. Blake. And one of the topics that came up was how to get your case acceptance up for your associate. And I just kind of took that subject for granted, but you walked through this framework, Dr. Blake. You gave 4 pillars that you have to use to help your associate increase their case acceptance. And I just want to dive into that. So before we jump into these, is there anything that you want to make sure the audience understands from a framing standpoint before we jump into these 4 topics?
Not necessarily. I want to dive in and get as granular as we can because it's an easy subject once you understand it, but it's pretty complex from the outset because you're really dealing with people and emotions more than you are anything else. And so I think let's just dive in and see where the conversation takes us. And I know we're going to provide some value. And a lot of this stuff is just school of hard knocks. I've done it poorly and I've just learned different things that are helpful.
Yeah. When you dropped this in the mastermind, I was blown away. I was like, this is so good. So I instantly wrote it all down. And I don't even know if you knew that you gave 4 pillars. You were like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and you got to do this. And the last one is probably, I wouldn't say the most important, but it's like the cherry on top of the milkshake, because without it, it makes their job exponentially harder. And with it, it makes their job easier. So we'll dive through these. Let's go through them one by one. So first, you said you have to sit down with your doctor and your associate, and you have to have a talk with them. And you have to have an honest talk with them. So can you walk me through that conversation, how to have that and what that should look like?
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to have a way of measuring and tracking treatment acceptance. And you have to be able to hold your associate accountable to the results they're producing. And it's not off of emotion. It's not off of, well, I think you're doing good. It's actual real numbers. And so we can quite literally track the amount of patients that say yes to something and that say yes to everything in our practice. You can use different services. We use Practice by Numbers. There's Dental Intel. There's Blue IQ. There's Divergent Dental. There's so many different ways you can do this. But having real actual numbers is so critical to this.
Which is the second pillar. So we'll dive into what those numbers are and you can talk about your numbers and whatnot. So maybe metrics are the first pillar then, would you say, before the talk?
Yeah, well, I think it leads the talk.
Okay, so let's do that. So pillar number 1 is the metrics. So you got to have numbers and you have to know what good versus bad versus great is, right?
For sure. I think typically what we see, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because you've got data from all across the country, but typically the owner or doctor is usually the best closer in the practice. Usually they communicate the best. They have the most goodwill within the practice. Patients trust them the most. And so owners have to understand that outside of a total unicorn that comes in as an associate, they're probably not going to have the same number of treatment or case acceptance that you have. But the goal is how do we close the gap, right? And so if your treatment acceptance is at 35%, but your associates is at 19%, well, let's figure out how to get them to 25%, to get that gap closer, because you're losing opportunity from that. And although we would love for the efficiency to be 1-to-1, it just won't be that way.
And one of the reasons for that, and this is true in my company, is true in every single business, it's not just dental, is that the owner doctor has the most flexibility to be like, it's fine. Just write that one off. Or no, we're going to do it for this much. An employee will never do that with your money. Only the owner can do that. And a lot of times we take it for granted. So I hop on a call with somebody and I'm like, we'll take care of that. No worries. We'll write that off. And I can do that because I own the company. It's my money. But an associate, it's not their money. So they don't have that flexibility. But there's more to it than that. It's more than just that side of it. So what would you say what do you say a good closing ratio or a case acceptance ratio is for associates?
Well, I think for anybody, the goal can be the same. I think associates can shoot for the same goal. As a practice on the whole, we are trying to get people to say yes to something at 75% of the time. So we might present $10,000 worth of treatment, but even if they say yes to a class 1 occlusal filling, that is an acceptance. That is treatment acceptance. However, case acceptance, in my opinion, should be in a healthier range around 30 to 35%. So those are patients that say yes to everything you present. Now, recently, I think I actually sent you a text message about this, but there was a treatment coordinator that said, I'm closing at 98% or something like that. And the first thing that went off in my mind was like, that's a red flag, because that's likely because either your prices are way too low or your doctor is not diagnosing enough. If everybody is saying yes, everything that you recommend, then that is also a problem. And so we found that 30 to 35 to 70 to 75% is where we're the most healthy in our practice.
The reason, and I've looked at your numbers on the marketing side, we were just looking at this beforehand. So you have a severely lagging KPI in ROI, which on surface is like, that's a problem. Why is that happening? And normally I would say, it's because of availability. You're pushing your patients too far out, but you don't have that. And what it is you have learned, I learned this a long time ago. It's called 100% case acceptance. It's really cool. So what it is that if someone comes into your practice for anything and accepts anything, any treatment, doesn't matter if it's $50, $100 or all the way up, right? You get that patient is very likely to stay with you now. And you get 100% of all their case acceptance, all their treatment that they need the rest of their life. You get 100% of that for the rest of their life. Maybe not this month, and maybe not next month, but they're like 6 months out and then 6 months out. You're going to get 100% of that. And you get 100% of all the referrals they send you. So you get this like compounding ROI effect versus if a patient walks out without anything, saying yes to anything, you likely will get 0% from them, and you'll for sure never get a patient referral from them.
Yeah. This is going to be wildly off topic, but it's on topic with what we're talking about right now. So bring us back to the 4 pillars in a minute. But I was in a group of probably 12 dentists last week, and the joke kind of became that the answer that Blake was going to give was just spend more on marketing. And which was hilarious. Like I was just like, you just need to spend more. Like $2,500 a month is like a drop in the bucket. You need to spend more. But all that being said, I've just learned so much. I've gained so much clarity over the past year and a half working with you guys to understand that you've got to understand what the goal is. And I've told your team 1,000 times, my goal is not to maximize ROI right now. My goal is how many actual new patients can we get? Not how many leads, not how many qualified leads, how many actual new patients show up to our practice. That's all I care about. And I've quite literally told you guys that all I care about is if we break even, I'm happy.
I've had to read, just so you know, I've had to retrain my team because they're like, we're going to tell Dr. Blake to like unroll all of his this marketing. And I'm like, don't do that. Do not go and tell him that because nobody else thinks that way. Nobody else is building out or very few people. There's some out there. Very few people are building out like a hygiene machine like you are, that you're going to reap years and years and years from referrals and so anyways, I love that you think that way. So that is awesome. So the metrics, let's go back to the pillars. So the metrics is practice. Overall, you have 75% of your patients saying yes to something. and you have 30 to 35% of your patients saying yes to everything. So that's your practice-wide goal. And then also down to the associates. So if somebody's off on that, right? So right now, people are going to listen to this podcast and they're going to be like, my associates don't do that, or we don't even do that as a practice, or whatever it may be. What's the talk? So this is the second pillar. What is the talk and how do you have it?
Yeah. So I think the talk is just making them understand where they're at in the process of the patient journey and what impact they have on it. So there's going to be, I think there are two things that people have to understand. There's the treatment coordinator and the doctor. And the doctor is in charge of closing treatment, not the treatment coordinator. The job of the treatment coordinator is to fit the treatment into the budget of the patient. That's the only thing that they should have to do. And so if the doctor is unable to, the doctor should be able to understand and know exactly what the patient's going to do before they leave the room. That doesn't mean that they know how they're going to pay for it. That doesn't mean that they know what the sequence is going to be. But the doctor should know that the patient is either saying yes or saying no to the treatment. And if they are unable to get to that point, then they need to stay in the room and they need to keep working until they have figured that out. I am not surprised when Paige comes and says, hey, they signed up for treatment, they're doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yep, I know. Or she'll come in and say, hey, they're not doing it. I'm like, yep, I know. And I think that is so critical to understand that the doctor is in control of that. You have got to be able to guide the patient through that journey.
Pretend I'm the associate and pretend that I'm at 50% of people saying yes to something, and I'm at 17% of people doing some kind of case acceptance. So whether it's or accepting 17%, I'll restate this. So we'll restart that. So let's say that I'm your associate, and the practice is the practice is on average. So you're the owner doctor. You're seeing patients say yes to something 75% of the time, and you're getting 35% of patients to say yes to everything. But I'm the associate and I'm seeing only 50% saying yes to something and 17% of saying yes to everything. How are you having that conversation with me? Just like what I get what you were just saying, but like, how are you saying that to me?
Yeah. So, hey, Gary, it's my job as the owner of the practice to make you be as successful as possible here. And I'm seeing a gap in what could be an opportunity for you in our organization. And I want to help you with that. Let's look over these numbers and let's see kind of where we can improve. So if you look, you can see that I'm at X percentage and you're at lower X percentage. And let me be really clear, Gary, I don't expect for you to be at the same percentage as me. I've been here for the past 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, however long you've been there. And I've built up a lot of goodwill with these patients. And it's just going to take time for you to get there. But I want to see if there's a way that we can work on your communication, your body language while you're talking with patients. Are you diagnosing enough? Are you seeing enough of the things that are in patients' mouths to be able to understand, hey, this thing is correlated to this thing, which leads to this thing. So is there a gap in understanding of maybe where you're at there? And then also, are we using some tools that we have, like the 4 promises? Like when patients ask, how much is it going to cost? Do we immediately respond with, hey, I totally understand. Our goal for you today is know exactly what you can do, how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost, and how you can pay for it. Letting them know that they're in control of their treatment. Do you feel like you're nailing that? Or are there times when you leave the treatment room and you feel like, man, I just don't know if they're going to say yes?
Got it. And so is your goal to get me to open up about those things? Because you probably already have a good idea of what I'm doing, right?
My goal is for you to understand your own problem. My goal is to lead you to your own problem, because the numbers already say that there's a problem and it's clear that it is, but I want for you to understand where the problem is, not for me to self-diagnose it.
Okay. And then, so a good associate will be able to open up to you, right? If I get defensive, like, no, it's because, and I start blaming everybody, that's a problem. But if I say, you know what, Dr. Blake, you're right. And, I have been struggling with this. I'm glad you brought this up to me. Here's what I'm struggling with, blah, 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 blah. Then you can help coach them through it and tell them like, hey, I noticed on the last call that you did, you said that you let the associates shadow you so they can see how you're doing certain things. Is that kind of the next step after the talk then?
Yeah, no, I think that would be a great idea. Assuming that you're the best communicator in the practice, that would be the way I would do it. If your treatment coordinator is the best communicator in the practice, then they should go listen to the treatment coordinator. I think creating a culture in the organization of doctors helping doctors is not the only way to grow, but in my world, it makes a lot of sense to do that. I don't think it should be weird. Our team shouldn't.
I don't know if you want the marketing people teaching the doctors clinical stuff, right? I don't know if there is any other way. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah. So I think I don't think our team should be surprised if Dr. Hamblin is in there helping, watching Dr. Farrell do an extraction, or vice versa. I think that should just be the culture in our practice. And as we grow, more and more doctors, they do the same thing.
Okay. So the first step is the metrics. You got to have those. If you're not tracking them, start tracking them. And then from there, you have to create a baseline for yourself. Now you have a baseline to work with your associates. And through that, you need to start building a culture of like, hey, we need to help each other. We need to watch each other. A lot of practices don't have that. That's the number one complaint of younger dentists is like, I don't have a mentor. I'm just out here guessing if what I'm doing is right clinically in the moment. And so then once you have those things, then you can have the talk. Hopefully you have enough goodwill with your associate that they're going to listen to you and want to open up to you. Now that you have that, now let's talk about the schedule, because you brought up that if the schedule isn't set up right for the associate doctor, they're not going to win no matter what.
Yeah. So I think it's really easy to reverse engineer what the goals are for the associate. So along with the talk, finding out what are the goals for the associate. Does the associate have a goal to do $1 million in production this year? Well, if that's the case, then they need to do around $83,000 a month. And if that's the case, then you need to know how many days are in that month and how much do they need to do per day to reach that goal. And then what you can do is you can set aside different blocks. You can say, okay, we're going to have 3 2-hour blocks and 2 1-hour blocks on your schedule. And then the team's it's really clear. Hey, Dr. Farrell's off of goal by 2 2-hour blocks today. We need to try to get those filled today by either treatment recall or same day treatment. How are we going to help do that? And it's really easy, and it helps the morning huddle flow better. It helps everything flow better. But if you just have an open call and you just let people flow in wherever they want to go, then it's going to be a mess.
And this is why most practices are so all over the map. One month they do $200,000 in collection. The next month they do 94. The next, you know what I mean? And it's just like, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's just chaos. And it's because there's no structure.
Yep. And it's okay to create the problem. So when we brought Dr. Farrell on, we did not do block scheduling for Dr. Farrell. And frankly, we still don't do block scheduling for Dr. Farrell, because we're not quite to the point to where his schedule demands that. But my schedule is 100% blocked. So if a patient wants to do a 1-hour appointment and I don't have a 1-hour appointment for the next 2 weeks, then it's really easy for our team to say, hey, Dr. Hamblin unfortunately can't see you for another 2 to 4 weeks, but Dr. Farrell's available tomorrow to do that. Is that something you'd like to do? And it makes it really easy for us to punt treatment to him. And then he feels like he's winning. He feels supported, so that when we have these conversations, it's not personal. It's like, I love this quote of like, be really hard on the problem, but not on the person. And I think if you can go into those conversations and have that mindset, people don't get offended. They know that you want the best for them.
I love that. I'm going to start saying that. The other one I've heard is it's totally fine to question the methods, just don't question the motives, right? You don't know why they're doing what they're doing, like what their heart is. They might be trying their hardest, but the system's a little bit broken. So I absolutely love that. So, okay. So now let's talk about the last thing. And this is the one I've never heard anybody talk about this before. And I think for me, if I was an associate doctor, this would be the biggest deal to me, because this is going to make my life way easier or way harder, is the financing and the way that you're leading with financing. And I know what some people is like, well, it's the treatment coordinator, but it's like, no, if I know that I can get all my patients down to a low monthly payment to take care of their treatment, more people are going to say yes. It's that simple.
Yeah. And I think we've hit on this, but we utilize Cherry. There's other financing deals, but Cherry's worked great for us. And I think the key to all of that is truly leading with it. And you talk a lot about that, but leading with it, not using it as a life raft at the end to say, oh no, but we can do this, but actually saying, hey, your treatment is really expensive, or it's as little as $100 a month. Which of these options work best for you? It just makes it really simple. And then your associates understand that they can actually comprehensively diagnose treatment. A lot of them are selling dentistry out of their own pocketbook. And I'll speak for myself. When I was an associate, I think I shared this already. When I was an associate, I made about $120,000 a year the first year as associate, which is below the national average. But my goal is to do other things, to buy the practice, all the things. But it would have been really easy for me to be like, I can't tell someone they need a $50,000 smile makeover. That's like half of what I make in a year. I can't do that. But when they understand that, oh, it can turn into a $200 payment per month for the next 7 years, like it's a little easier to tolerate, right? And so I think understanding that, and if associates understand that you're going to help support them to make that stuff financially reasonable for patients, they're going to be more likely and more able to tell patients all of the things going on. Versus if you just say, nope, our fees are our fees, and that's it. Patients just don't want that.
Yeah. No, they don't want that. And nobody wants to feel poor. And a lot of times what ends up happening is, it's not a selling strategy. It's funny because actually some of the bigger, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of the big like Louis Vuitton, these big like designer fashion models that sell like, $5,000 shirts and stuff, their whole business model is to make you feel poor if you can't afford their stuff. And they use shame to sell their product. And it's not a good model. Like, it doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy. Like, you go walk into one of those stores sometime and watch how they do it. It's pretty interesting. There's documentaries on it, but dentistry's kind of the same way. It's like, hey, you got $5,000 worth of treatment, and it's like on this tooth and tooth 4 and 7 and this and root and a bunch of stuff they don't understand. And then it's like, do you want to do it? And it's like, let me talk to my husband. Let me talk to my wife. Let me get back to you. And if you put it down on their level, you can make it so much easier for them to accept it. And it's like, hey, you got this problem. You got these fillings that you need. If you don't get these fillings, they're going to turn into root canals, and they're going to hurt, and they're going to be this much more expensive. So if we take care of it all now, you're going to save a boatload of money, and you're not going to get into pain, and we can do it for $350 a month.
Yeah, I think we've confused where we need to create that scarcity. So these luxury brands, that their brand is quite literally how exclusive can we make ourselves? And if you do that in dentistry, there's like a few people around the country that are able to do that. There's some cosmetic dentists that, like Dr. Appo, like he has built his brand around, I want to be so exclusive that only the best people and the people that will spend the most money will come see me. And that works for him, but most of us can't do that. But what we can do is create a luxury experience. And that is where the luxury comes in. So how do we make our dentistry so stinking affordable that everyone could do it in our practice, but the experience is actually what is luxurious? The experience is what actually people come for. And if you merge those two things together, that's how you get explosive growth. Like when you talk to all these other dentists that have grown their patient, doubled their new patients, grown by 38% and grown by 68%, you're like, it's not because their dentistry got better. It's because their experience got better. Their buying process got better. Their patients appreciate what they're doing more. That's it. That's the only thing. So it's literally figuring out, how do you fit the dentistry into their budget so that they can digest it more concisely. And that's it.
I'm just gonna keep repeating this. Like, I bought Laker tickets recently, and as I was buying the Laker tickets on Christmas Day, there's a Lakers game versus Houston. And I was like, sweet, I want to get really good seats. And they were expensive. Like, Laker tickets are like some of the most expensive tickets out there, no matter where you're sitting. And literally, as I'm checking out on the page, guess what it asked me? Hey, you want to split that up in 4 payments? Why? Why do they do that? Because they're expensive. And it's not because people don't want Laker tickets or that I think Lakers are bad. And they're going to pay a little bit of a fee on that, but they're okay with that because they're selling more tickets. And it's in everything. You can't buy a toaster on Amazon without getting offered for easy payments. And it's going to be everywhere. It already is everywhere. And a warranty. So we have to figure this out. In dentistry, the people who are figuring it out universally now, because I have a whole stable of podcasts now, these people are better at helping patients and they're better at getting case acceptance to the point where other doctors see it and they go, oh, you must be over treating. No, they're just making it easier to say yes to all the treatment that these people need. And I'm really excited about that. People, if you don't have Cherry, they're a sponsor of the show. The link's down below. If you want to sign up for them, great. If you're using another company, that's great too. Just use it and use it well and use it properly. So this has been an awesome episode. Is there any closing thoughts before we part ways, Doctor?
No, I'm with you. I think like there's a lot of things that we've done over the past year and a half to generate growth in our practice. And like reflecting back, we've close to doubled our collections in a year. And we've done two things. We've marketed heavier and not just spent more money, but like actually had a plan and executed on the plan. And we've introduced third-party financing. And those two things have quite literally radically shifted the speed in which our practice has grown. And I understand where people come from, where it's scary to change and it's scary to do something different. But I've also been the dentist that has beaten their head against the wall for 2.5 years, trying to do the same things over and over again. And the definition of insanity, I got the exact same results. And so if you're truly ready to do something different, then do something different. Try something different. If you don't know how to do it, this isn't a plug for the mastermind, but join the mastermind. Like you can leave it once you figure it all out. Truly, like I could care less, but I would love to help you full time and get there faster.
Yep. I love it. Well, I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for listening out there. And all the links are down below. Go check them out. Mastermind, Cherry, sign up. And most of them are free or really close to free to using. So thanks so much. You have a great day.